Right, executive summary, I made a video game. It's called P6 Solihull and it's a short game where you fight Greg and Solihull for no reason. You can play it for free at the link in the description, Windows only, but maybe one day I'll release it for other things. Okay, if you're still here, I'll tell you how I did it. So up until a little while ago, all of my video game programming had been 2D work, but recently I've been on a bit of a 3D kick, and resources like Mixamo and CG Trader and the like have been incredibly helpful. So the basic idea of the game that I made was jury-rigged from something my friend Dan tweeted a while ago. Now, obviously I can't make Persona 6 without getting Atlas to sue me into the ground, so I decided to name it P6 as an homage to the tweet it came from. It also doesn't feature personas, it's just your short run-of-the-mill RPG game. Please don't see. So at the beginning of the process, I blocked out some storyboarding for how I wanted the game to run. The game begins with the player driving into town on a bus. The bus immediately crashes in the street, but inexplicably the main character is fine. They stand there on the street corner monologuing for a bit until they're interrupted by someone bumping into them and exploding. Again, somewhat of a pastiche of the opening premise of Persona 5, where the main character is also involved in a fracas with someone that results in them falling over. The man that gets knocked over is inevitably upset, a fight ensues and the player wins. Problem though, because someone saw them do it and calls the cops. I won't reveal how it ends, because otherwise, like, what would be the point in playing it? If I just tell you the ending, you won't download it, and then it'll just be what. In the original version of the game, the ending features a hamsterized version of the chorus from Nickelback's Hero, and honestly, the comic timing of it still makes me cry. Again, I can't show you it because I don't have the money to be getting litigious right now, so you'll just have to take my word for it. So with the major plot beats blocked out, it was time to start building the environment. I downloaded this town asset from the Unity Asset Store because it was cheap and I figured it would make a good stand-in for the town of Solihull, despite the road markings being wrong. With that in place, I needed to animate the bus crashing down the street, and for this Demi-Giant's tweening library is very useful. It allows you to linearly interpolate the position of any 3D object from one point to another without needing to do any complicated maths, and despite being a game developer, complicated maths is not generally my forte, so it was a massive time save. Next, we needed the characters. My 3D modeling is passable, but I don't know how to make people yet, so Adobe's Mixamo library of a bunch of 3D characters not sponsored was very helpful. If you're going to import from their library into Unity yourself, remember to set the rig type to humanoid, and I found that setting the material type to external materials legacy gave me a more reliable skin. The best part about Mixamo is that it also supplies a bunch of free character animations, again because I haven't quite figured that out yet. You can tell that the camera woman about a third of the way in was done by me because her wrist is just fully broken in this shot. If you want to replicate this yourself though, the process was a little bit of a hassle. Drag the character into your scene once you've done all of your setup, then create an empty animation for it, and Ctrl-D to duplicate out the animation attached to your character and drag it into the animator window, setting it as the default. Then, if you save that character as a prefab in your project window, whenever you bring that prefab back into the game, it'll be doing that animation from the start. Next, we needed to change the position of the camera to get a different shot. This is when I implemented the Xnode library, which is a free add-on for Unity that allows you to create node-based systems for pretty much anything you could otherwise write in code. This system saved a lot of time for me because in previous projects I've used scriptable objects for this purpose, which, while useful if you're looking to create a bunch of variants of the same data structure, don't scale well for dialogue trees and that sort of thing, which is what I needed to make this work. So how does that apply to the camera? Well, by installing Xnode and creating nodes for object movement and rotation, I could attach an identifier to the camera and tell it to move to a certain position and rotation in the world after waiting a certain amount of time. In this way, we can get a series of shots over time at different angles. I also used Cinemachine and attached some slight purlin noise to the camera to give it that sort of shaky cam effect. God, I love the sound of my own voice. With that out of the way, I made a few more nodes, this time for audio control. Sound in P6 Solihull is piped through 5 audio channels: music, voice, SFX, ambiance, and Nickelback. That 5th one was for the hamster meme at the end, which unfortunately didn't make it into the public release. Using the audio and stop audio nodes I programmed, the game can play and stop audio in those 4 different channels that dialogue and music, for instance, can happen at the same time on different layers. At this point, I realized I needed to actually implement the dialogue, and so I decided that for this project I would voice all of the characters. You can tell the voice acting is done by me because it's not very good. I booted into Adobe Audition and decided that to retain the sort of Podell style, I wouldn't do any audio mastering on the lines for the main character, except to stop it blowing out people's eardrums. In later lines, to emphasize which character is speaking, I did run some audio mastering, so for instance applying some walkie-talkie sounding fuzz on the police dispatcher and making the officer in the helicopter sound like he's shouting through a megaphone. For that later one, I followed Mike Russell's tutorial and attached a convolution reverb at the end to give it that sort of out on the street feel.
Sir, this is the police. Face the helicopter with your hands in the air.
So on and on I went, moving the camera, animating the people, dropping in funny memes here and there, until I realized I'd reached the point in the game development cycle that was going to suck up all my time: coding the fight AI. So I began by blocking out the parameters of the fight. After the discussion finishes, you and Greg move out into the middle of the street and change to idle fists drawn animations. There's a brief dialogue bit, I got a sign to fall off the wall for no reason, and then it launches into the battle. Leonard has a limited supply of SP, which is his source of psychic energy that allows him to cast spells in this fight. You do have a limited resource of chipolatas that can restock this SP, but when it's out, and if you don't have Greg on the ropes by then, you could be in big trouble. Making the fight was very hard, probably the hardest part of the entire workflow, to be honest. At the start, I just had it so that the opponent will either act defensively, so using spells that show up their ability to dodge, or they'll just heal if their health is lower than its maximum, or offensively. They'll use one of their spells to do damage to the player, poison them, or lower their attack power. This is unless their health is very low, in which case Greg enters his last stand mode, where his attack power goes up and he stops using defensive abilities. The problem arose almost immediately. I had a go at the fight and Greg curb stomped me in seconds. What followed was a slow dance of me ticking sliders up and down, trying to get his damage output just right, so that his fight was challenging but not fiendishly impossible. In the end, I actually set it up so that if he's just healed, he won't do it again for about 3 turns, and every 3 or 4 turns at least he'll use his weakest attack, which is his punch move, dealing about 10 to 15 damage. Other changes I made, for instance, if you use an antidote, it'll lay off on poisoning you again until a couple of turns have gone by, because I found that as soon as I removed the poison effect, it would just turn up again the next time that Greg moved, which was immediately after, so what's the point? Eventually I landed on something that I was broadly happy with. If anything, I think the fight is slightly on the too easy side, but give it a try yourself and let me know what you think. Maybe one day I'll release DLC where you can fight God Mode Greg, and if you win, I'll I'll send you an expired Nando's gift card or something, who cares. So anyway, once you've whittled Greg's health down to 0, he has this big moment of kill, and after that it was just the process from before of using the node system I'd built to animate the camera and people around, have the police turn up, and then the big finale. Will Leonard escape? And that was it. I added a main menu, subtitles, quality control, post-processing, and then put it on itch.io before moving on with my life. If you want to give it a try and see if you can beat Greg, the download link is in the description. Let me know how fast your speedrun time is, and yeah, if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments that I will not read, because your opinion is not important to me. Cheers for watching, guys. Blah blah, only 42.981% of you are subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, I guess, I don't know, who cares, goodbye.